The key fob is heavier than you expected. That is the first thing you notice. Not the engine, not the sound, not the way every single person in the dealership parking lot stops moving when you walk out. The key fob, small, black, a tiny raging bull stamped into the metal, and it is heavier than any key you have ever held in your life. You are 25 years old, you just signed your name to a $287,000 Lamborghini Urus. And standing in that parking lot with the afternoon sun hitting the paint in a way that does not look real, you feel something you have been quietly chasing your entire life. You feel chosen, like the universe looked at everything you came from, everything you pushed through, and finally said yes. That feeling will last exactly 4 months. What comes after it will take 5 years to fully understand. And by the time you do, you will be 30 years old, sitting across from a financial advisor who is looking at your net worth statement the way a doctor looks at a scan he was not expecting. Not with alarm, with the specific quiet concern of someone who has seen this before and knows exactly where it leads. This is that story. All of it, including the parts that nobody posts. You did not walk into a Lamborghini dealership on a whim. You earned the right to be there. At least that is the story you told yourself. And parts of it were true. By 25, you had built something real, a business that was generating serious income. Not generational wealth income, not I never have to think about money again income, but numbers with commas, numbers that felt like proof. You had watched money be the source of every tension in your household growing up, every argument behind closed doors, every skipped vacation, every time your mother said maybe next year about something that was never going to be next year, and you had decided early that your life was going to look different. The Lamborghini was not impulsive. It was intentional. It was the physical, undeniable, park it anywhere and watch what happens evidence that the decision you made years ago was the right one. That you had actually done it, that the story had changed. The financing looked manageable on paper. 20% down, $57,400. The rest financed over 84 months at 6.9% APR, which is approximately what the market was offering high earners on exotic vehicles in that window. Monthly payment, $3,340. You ran the number against your income. It fit, barely, but it fit, and barely felt like enough because you had been working in the margins of barely your entire life and you knew how to make it work. You drove it home on a Tuesday. You took the long way. You took every long way for the first 2 weeks. Within 30 days, your entire social universe had reorganized itself around the car. People you had not heard from in years were suddenly reaching out, not asking about you, asking about it. Can I see it? Can I sit in it? Can you pick me up from the airport in it? Your social media following grew by 11,000 people in 6 weeks, and you had not changed anything about your content, except that the car was occasionally in the background. You did not even feature it deliberately. It inserted itself. And the doors it opened were real. You got into rooms you had been trying to access for 2 years. Conversations started differently. A business contact who had been slow walking a deal for months suddenly wanted to have lunch. You are not imagining it. The car is working exactly the way you believed it would work when you justified the purchase. Here is the thing about that. It was real. And it was also a trap because what the car was opening was not doors to relationships built on what you could deliver. It was opening doors to rooms full of people who were also performing. And performing people attract performing people. The energy is electric and completely hollow. You will not understand this for another 2 years. Your closest friend from before the car, a guy named Andre who still drives his paid-off 2019 Tacoma and puts $1,500 a month into a Roth IRA like it is as automatic as breathing. Andre comes to see you one evening. He sits in the passenger seat. He runs his hand across the dashboard. He says it is beautiful. And then he is quiet for a moment and he says, "What does this actually cost you per month?" All in. You give him the payment number. He nods slowly. He does not say anything else. And you feel, for just a second, a flicker of something you cannot name. You push it down. Andre is just not built for this level, you tell yourself. He will understand later. He never changes his opinion. And 5 years from now, you will understand that the silence in that car was not judgment. It was grief. Month 5. You sit down and do what you have been avoiding, the full accounting. The payment is $3,340. You knew that. What you did not fully absorb before signing is everything that rides alongside it. Insurance on an exotic vehicle for a 25-year-old male, $1,100 a month. This is not a rounding error. This is a number your insurance broker said with a completely straight face, and you accepted because you had already committed, and turning back at that point felt like losing. Fuel. A Lamborghini Urus averages roughly 14 miles per gallon combined. At premium fuel prices and your driving pattern, you are spending $380 a month at the pump. Tires. Exotic vehicles eat tires at a rate that is genuinely difficult to prepare for emotionally. A full set of replacement tires for a Urus runs between $3,000 and $5,000. Amortized monthly, that is another $150. Maintenance. Lamborghini recommends service intervals that do not exist at your local shop. Every scheduled service runs between $1,500 and $4,000 depending on what the technician finds. Monthly average, when you spread it across the year, $280. Add it up, $3,340 in payments, $1,100 in insurance, $380 in fuel, $150 in tires, $280 in maintenance. That is $5,250 a month, $63,000 a year to drive a car. The AAA estimates the true annual cost of an average vehicle at around $12,000. You are running 5 times that, and unlike a mortgage, unlike a business investment, unlike almost any other major financial commitment you can make at 25, this asset is doing one thing with absolute consistency every single day. It is losing value. You close the spreadsheet, you do not change anything yet, but something has shifted in the part of your brain that handles math, and that part does not go back to sleep. Here is the number that nobody puts in the brochure. Exotic vehicles depreciate faster than almost any other asset class in the consumer market. A Lamborghini Urus loses approximately 20% of its value in the first year. By year 3, you are looking at roughly 40% depreciation from the purchase price. By year 5, depending on mileage and condition, you could be sitting at 50% or below. You paid $287,000. In 5 years, that car will be worth somewhere between $130,000 and $150,000 on the open market. The loan will not care about any of that. The loan will still want its $3,340 on the first of every month, regardless of what the asset is doing underneath it. Meanwhile, Andre just bought a duplex. You hear about it casually. He mentions it the way he mentions everything, without theater, without a press release, just matter-of-factly over a phone call. He put 20% down on a 2-unit property. The tenant in the second unit covers 80% of his mortgage. He is 27 years old and a piece of real estate is working for him while he sleeps. You do the math, you have been avoiding. The $57,400 you put down on the Lamborghini. If you had put that into an S&P 500 index fund at the historical average return of 10% annually, by the time you are 30, you would be looking at roughly $92,000. If you had used it as a down payment on a duplex the way Andre did, the math gets more interesting. Rental income. Equity building, an asset that appreciates while someone else helps pay for it. Instead, your $57,400 bought you a depreciating asset that is now worth $57,400 less than it was when you handed it over. And you are still writing the check every month. The car has not changed. It is still beautiful. It still stops traffic. It still opens rooms. None of that has changed. What has changed is your ability to sit inside it without running the math involuntarily. Month 28. It is a Wednesday night. You are sitting in the Urus in the parking structure beneath your building, and you are not going anywhere. You got some difficult news today about the business. Not catastrophic, but the kind of news that reminds you how thin the margin actually is. And sitting in the dark with the engine off, you open every financial account you have and look at them all at once for the first time in 4 months. What you see is this. Your net worth has not grown in 2 years. Not meaningfully. You are earning well and you have almost nothing to show for it. Because $63,000 a year in car costs is not a rounding error. It is the entire surplus. Every dollar you make above your living expenses goes directly into a machine that loses value daily and asks for nothing in return except more dollars. The average age of a first-time homebuyer in America is now 38, up from 33 just a decade ago. You are 27. The window that felt infinite at 25 is no longer infinite. Every year you spend servicing this vehicle is a year your down payment is not compounding. Is a year you are renting instead of building equity. Is a year that the future version of yourself who has options is getting pushed further away. Auto loan delinquencies hit their highest rate since 2010 in 2024. You are not delinquent, but you are one bad quarter away from understanding that statistic personally. You sit in the car for a long time. The raging bull on the steering wheel looks back at you. And for the first time since the day you signed, you let yourself ask the question you have been engineering your entire life around, avoiding. What am I actually doing this for? And who am I doing it for? And is it working? The answers are not comfortable, but they are clarifying, and clarity, even when it arrives late, is worth something. You list it on a Thursday, not with a dramatic speech, not with a moment. You take the photos in the morning light because the car has always photographed well, and you write a clean, honest listing. And you post it. 3 serious inquiries come in over the following week. The buyer is a 31-year-old who made his money in logistics and has been wanting one since he was a teenager. He wires the funds. He drives it away on a gray Tuesday afternoon while you stand in the parking structure watching the taillights drop out of frame. You feel the grief immediately. It is real and it is specific. You are not grieving the car, you are grieving the version of yourself who bought it. The 25-year-old standing in that dealership parking lot, holding a key fob that felt heavier than anything he had ever held, feeling for the first time like the answer had arrived, like the story had finally turned. You do the final accounting. After 28 months of payments, insurance, fuel, tires, and maintenance, after selling at current market value, you walk away with $11,200. That is the total material yield of 2.5 years and over $147,000 in total vehicle costs. $11,200. You put it directly into a brokerage account. You do not tell anyone. 2 weeks later, you were driving a 3-year-old BMW 3 Series that costs $480 a month. It has 41,000 miles and a small scuff on the rear bumper. Nobody takes photos of it. Nobody asks to sit in it. You pull into a parking spot and you are just a person in a car. You wait for that to feel like failure. It does not. What it feels like is space, room to breathe. A loosening of something you had been holding so tightly and for so long that you had stopped noticing the tension in your hands. Andre's duplex has a backyard. He had people over last summer, and you stood there holding a drink, looking at the property he owns, the equity he has been quietly building for 3 years, the tenant check that arrives every month regardless of what the market is doing. And you felt something complicated that did not have a single clean name. At 30, you understand what the Lamborghini actually cost you. And it was not $287,000. It was not even the $147,000 in total costs over 28 months, though that number is real and it is worth sitting with. What it cost you was the 5 years between 25 and 30. And in the compound interest economy, those are the most expensive years you have. Not because of what you spent, because of what you did not build. Because of the version of yourself at 30 who would have had a down payment, a rental property, a brokerage account with 5 years of compounding behind it, that version of yourself got delayed, not permanently, but meaningfully. Here's what nobody tells you about ego-driven financial decisions. They never feel like ego from the inside. They feel like reward. They feel like I worked for this. I came from nothing and I finally get to have something that proves it. And that feeling, the hunger underneath it, the need to be seen and recognized and taken seriously, that is not weakness. That is one of the most human things there is. But the Lamborghini was never going to deliver what you were actually looking for. It could deliver attention, it could deliver rooms, it could deliver a version of Arrival that photographs well. What it could not deliver was the thing underneath all of it, the actual security, the actual freedom, the actual ability to make decisions from a position of strength rather than a position of performance. That only comes from one place, the account nobody sees, the investment nobody applauds, the decision you make at midnight with a calculator and no audience. The patient, quiet, unglamorous construction of something real. At 25, you needed someone to climb into the passenger seat before you signed and say this: the thing you are looking for is real. The hunger you feel is valid. You just cannot buy it. You have to build it. And the building looks nothing like a Lamborghini. It looks like boring decisions made consistently over years until one morning you wake up and realize you have options. Real ones. The kind that do not disappear when the lease ends. You are 30 now. The brokerage account is not impressive yet, but it is pointed in the right direction and it is compounding quietly in the background while you make better decisions than you made at 25. That is not a consolation prize. That is the whole game.